In 210 BC, arguably the most powerful ruler alive died in his carriage. He was returning from a tour of his empire, the first unified empire in Chinese history, an empire he had unified in less than 20 years. He was 49 years old. He did not die from an assassin's blade, though 3 men had tried. He did not die in battle, though he had fought dozens. He died because his doctors had given him mercury pills. Mercury, the liquid metal, one of the most toxic substances on Earth. They told him it would make him immortal. He believed them. The man who had conquered 6 kingdoms connected the northern walls into what we now call the Great Wall, unified China's writing system, its currency, its roads, and its measurements. The man who had created the concept of China itself died poisoned by his own desperate search for eternal life. His name was Qin Shi Huang. And the story of how a brilliant, terrified king became the first emperor of China, and then destroyed himself trying to stay alive, is one of the strangest stories in human history. Qin Shi Huang was born in 259 BC. His father was the king of the state of Qin, one of 7 rival kingdoms that had been fighting each other for 250 years, in a period Chinese historians call the Warring States. His childhood was not safe. His father died when he was 13. He inherited the throne. 13 years old, king of a state surrounded by enemies. For the next 9 years, a powerful regent named Lu Bue actually ran the kingdom, while the teenage king watched, learned, and waited. At 22, he took power. At 22, he began planning the conquest of the known world. What drove him is not entirely clear from historical records. But 2 things are certain. He was extraordinarily intelligent, and he was terrified of dying. Between 230 and 221 BC, Qin Shi Huang conquered 6 kingdoms in 9 years. Han Zhao Wei Chu Yan Qi. One by one they fell. This was not inevitable. The other kingdoms were not weak. Some had larger armies. Some had stronger fortifications. Some had better generals. But Qin had something the others didn't. A system. Qin had adopted a philosophy called legalism. The idea that a state should be run not on Confucian virtue and tradition, but on strict laws, rewards for performance, and brutal punishment for failure. Every soldier who brought back an enemy head was promoted. Every official who failed his targets was punished. Every resource was directed toward one goal: conquest. It was ruthless, it was efficient, it worked. By 221 BC, for the first time in Chinese history, one man ruled everything from the Yellow River to the South China Sea. He needed a new title. He invented one. Huangdi Emperor. The first emperor. Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang wasn't just conquering China. He was redesigning reality. Every cart had the same axle width, so every road could accommodate every vehicle from one end of the empire to the other. Every weight matched every market. Every official answered to him alone. He standardized the writing system, taking dozens of regional scripts and imposing a single unified form. One script, one voice, one empire. He built 6,800 kilometers of roads, a network of canals. He moved 120,000 aristocratic families from across the empire to his capital, breaking their local power bases, placing them where he could watch them. He connected and extended the existing northern walls into a single defensive barrier, what we now call the Great Wall, built by hundreds of thousands of conscript laborers. Many died, many were buried inside it. And he burned the books. In 213 BC, On the advice of his chief minister Li Si, Qin Shi Huang ordered the burning of all historical records, philosophical texts, and poetry that did not directly serve the state. According to later Han historians, who were not neutral observers, scholars who protested were buried alive, around 460 of them. He was building a new world. He did not want the old one remembered. But none of it solved the one problem he couldn't conquer: death. Here is the paradox at the center of Qin Shi Huang's life. One of the most powerful rulers alive was terrified. Not of enemies, though he had many. Not of rebellion, though there were plots. He was terrified of death. The closest he ever came was in 227 BC, before he had finished his conquests. An assassin named Jing Qi had been sent by the king of Yan, disguised as an envoy. He entered the imperial audience hall, unrolled a map that concealed a poisoned dagger, and lunged. Qin Shi Huang ran. The most powerful man in China ran around a pillar in his own throne room, while his ministers watched in frozen horror. Court protocol forbade them from carrying weapons in the emperor's presence. He survived. Jing Qi was cut down. But the image never left him. After each of the 3 attempts on his life, he became more paranoid, more isolated. He slept in a different room every night so no one could predict where to find him. He never told anyone his travel plans. He surrounded himself with alchemists who promised they could find the secret of immortality. He sent expeditions into the ocean to find mythical islands where immortal beings were said to live. The expeditions came back empty. Or they didn't come back at all. In preparation for the death he desperately wanted to avoid, Qin Shi Huang began building his tomb the moment he became emperor. Ancient sources, writing a century later, claim up to 700,000 workers spent 38 years building it. The tomb itself has never been fully excavated. Chinese archaeologists have used multiple geophysical methods to scan the mound. Beneath 50 meters of earth lies a vast underground complex. The total mausoleum site covers an area of nearly 60 square kilometers. Ancient sources describe what is inside: rivers of mercury flowing through artificial landscapes, a ceiling studded with pearls to represent stars, crossbows rigged to fire automatically at anyone who entered. The mercury levels in the soil above the tomb are measurably elevated. The rivers of mercury may be real. Outside the tomb, in 3 separate pits, are the figures you may have seen in photographs. 8,000 terracotta soldiers, thousands of individually modeled figures, each one life-size, each one originally painted in brilliant colors that have faded over 2,000 years. They were his army for the afterlife. He was prepared for death. He just refused to accept it. The alchemists told him mercury was the key. In Taoist thought, mercury, liquid silver, a metal that moved like water, was associated with immortality. It was magical. It was powerful. It defied the normal rules of matter. His court alchemists refined it into pills, into elixirs, into treatments that promised eternal life. He took them. Mercury is a neurotoxin. At low doses, it causes tremors, memory loss, mood swings, paranoia. At higher doses, organ failure, death. Some historians, looking at the accounts of Qin Shi Huang's final years, see a man becoming progressively more erratic, more paranoid, more disconnected from reality. His behavior in his last years, the isolation, the rage, the increasingly irrational decisions, is consistent with chronic mercury poisoning, though this remains a hypothesis rather than a confirmed diagnosis. He was killing himself with the cure. In 210 BC, Qin Shi Huang left his capital on an inspection tour of his empire. He was 49 years old and probably already dying. He died somewhere in the eastern provinces, far from home. His chief minister Li Si and a eunuch named Zhao Gao decided to keep the death secret. The imperial caravan continued moving, the emperor's body in his carriage, the windows closed, the court behaving as if nothing had happened. To mask the smell, they loaded a cart of salted fish alongside the carriage. The first emperor of China returned to his capital hidden among fish. When the death was finally announced, the succession crisis that followed destroyed everything he had built. His empire lasted 4 more years. 15 years total. The shortest major dynasty in Chinese history. And yet, everything Qin Shi Huang built didn't disappear with his empire. The unified writing system survived. Every Chinese person today, whether they live in Beijing or Shanghai or Hong Kong or Singapore or San Francisco, writes characters that trace their standardized form back to Qin Shi Huang's decree in 221 BC. The concept of a unified China survived. Every dynasty that followed Han, Tang, Song, Ming, Qing understood itself as the heir to the empire he created. The idea that China should be one thing, one unified state, is his idea. Even the name survived. Qin, pronounced Qin, is widely believed to be the origin of the word China in English, and similar words in dozens of other languages. Every time you say the word China, you are saying his name. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang sits under a grass-covered mound in Shanxi province. It has never been fully opened. Chinese archaeologists have chosen to leave it sealed, partly because the technology to excavate and preserve it properly doesn't yet exist, and partly, perhaps, out of a kind of respect. Inside, if the ancient sources are correct, the mercury rivers are still flowing. The crossbows are still cocked. The pearl stars are still on the ceiling. The man who tried to live forever is still in there. Surrounded by the army he built for a death he refused to accept. Preserved, ironically, by the mercury that killed him. He wanted to be immortal. In a way, he got what he wanted.